عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Hello everybody. Dear students at Damietta University Faculty of Commerce English program, this is our course Financial Institutions, Markets and Money for the third year, third grade, week number 7, lecture number 7. So in this lecture we are going to discuss and cover the third chapter in our course. This chapter entitled The Level of Interest Rates. The level of interest rates. Learning objectives for this chapter. So, after reading and studying this chapter, you would be able to first define the concept of an interest rate and explain the role of interest rates in the economy. Second, define the concept of the real interest rate and explain what causes the real interest rate to rise and fall. Third objective is explain how inflation affects interest rates. Fourth, calculate the realized real rate of return, the realized real rate of return on an investment. Fifth and the last one is explain how economists and financial decision makers forecast interest rates. So, what are interest rates? Interest rate can be considered as the rental price for money. Okay? And it can be considered as a penalty to borrowers for consuming before earning. Okay? And it can be considered as a reward to savers for postponing consumption. So, the interest rate usually will be expressed in terms of annual rates. Indeed, the interest rate, like any price for any commodity, as with any price for any commodity, interest rates serve to allocate resources efficiently and effectively. The real rate of interest. Producers seek financing for real assets. So, in this point, the expected ROI, return on investment, will represent the upper limit on interest rate producers can pay for financing. So, الupper limit اللي ممكن البروديوسرز can pay for financing هيكون ROI أو return on investment. في المقابل السيفرز require consumption for deferring consuming. Consumption for postponing consumption. So, the time value of postponing consumption is lower limit on interest rate at which savers will provide financing. يبقى إذن the time value of postponing consumption هيكون بمثابة lower limit on interest rate at which savers will provide financing. لكن أكيد أكتر من كده هيكون كويس جدا ليهم. Okay. Real rate occurs at equilibrium between desired real investment and desired saving. يبقى the real rate of interest will occur at equilibrium point, the intersection between desired real investment and the desired saving, as we will see in this exhibit. So, in this exhibit, in this figure, So, at this exhibit, at this figure, you can understand the determination of the real rate of interest. The real rate of interest, or STAR, will be determined based on the intersection between desired savings and the desired investment. And at this point, at the equilibrium point, the total savings will equal total investment. Total savings, S star, will equal total investments, I star. And as I told you before that, the interest rate is R star. And you have to know that there is a positive relationship between interest rates and desired savings. And there is a negative relationship or reverse relationship between the interest rate and the desired investment. Loanable funds theory. Loanable funds theory is one approach that can be used to explain the determination of the level of interest rate. According to loanable funds theory, supply of loanable funds or sources of funds available to invest in financial claims, demand for loanable funds, all uses of funds raised from issuing financial claims. And there is of course equilibrium interest rate at the equilibrium point. The supply of loanable funds, all sources of funds available to invest in financial claims. So, the supply of money come from consumer savings, business savings, government budget surpluses, and central bank action. Central bank action, OMO plus RR. OMO is abbreviation for open market operations, and RR is abbreviation for required reserve. So, the central bank can increase the money supply using the mechanisms of monetary policy as we discussed at the second chapter, like open market operations and required reserve. The demand for loanable funds, all uses of funds raised from issuing financial claims, consumer credit purchases, business investments, and government budget deficits. So, there are the uses of funds, and of course the demand for loanable funds. The equilibrium interest rate. If comparative forces operate in financial sector, laws of supply and demand will bring rates into equilibrium point. But you have to know that equilibrium is temporary or dynamic. It's not stable forever. It's temporary or dynamic. Why? Because any force that shifts supply or demand will tend to change the interest rates. For example, at the frame A, supply function for loanable funds is all O. So, the supply function of loanable funds is all O. So the amount of loanable funds QO. The interest rate is RO. At the frame B, demand function for loanable funds DLO. The amount of loanable funds QO and interest rate is RO. So, in this frame C, equilibrium rate of interest, you will find the supply equation and the demand equation, DLO. So, in the frame C, at the equilibrium rate of interest, you will find the supply equation, SLO, and the demand equation, DLO. The amount of loanable funds will be QO, and the interest rate will be RO. QO and RO are determined at the equilibrium point and the intersection point between supply function and demand function, according to loanable funds theory. So, but I have told you that the equilibrium point is not stable. It's temporary, it's dynamic. So, at the frame D, for example, the effect of an increase in the supply of loanable funds, the supply function will move from SLO to SLI. So, accordingly, the Q will move from the amount of loanable funds will move from QO to Q1. This is new intersection point. This is new equilibrium point between SLI and DLO. So the new interest rate will be RI. And this happened because the supply function moved down. So, price expectations and interest rates. Unanticipated inflation benefits borrowers at the expense of lenders. Lenders charge added interest to offset anticipated decreases in purchasing power. Expected inflation is embodied in nominal interest rate, and this is what we call the Fisher effect. يبقى unanticipated inflation benefits الborrowers at the expense of lenders. علشان كده بنلاقي إن lenders charge added interest to offset anticipated decreases in purchasing power. lenders بيطلبوا added interest، بيضيفوا interest جديد to offset the anticipated decreases in the purchasing power because of the inflation. The expected inflation as well will be embodied in nominal interest rates, and this is what we call the Fisher effect. Fisher effect. The exact Fisher equation is 1 plus I equal 1 plus R multiplied by 1 plus delta P E, where I, the observed nominal rate of interest, nominal rate, الفايدة الاسمية, R, the real rate of interest, الفايدة الحقيقية, delta PE, the expected annual rate of inflation, معدل التضخم المتوقع, expected. وخد بالك ان هو في الايكويشن دي delta PE, E abbreviation ل expected annual rate of inflation. طيب ناخد example بسيط كده ونقول suppose أن ماريا owns an investment portfolio. Last year, the portfolio earned a return of 3.25%. However, last year's inflation was around 2%. So, what is the real rate of interest or the real interest rate of the investment portfolio? So, the real interest rate after accounting for the inflation effect is 1.25%. اللي هو جه منين؟ 3.25% minus 2% equal 1.25%, according to the Fisher equation. From the Fisher equation, we derive the nominal rate, I. يبقى من خلال Fisher equation we can derive new equation to calculate the nominal interest rate I. So, from the exact Fisher equation, we can derive new equation to calculate the nominal interest rate I, where I equal to R plus delta PE plus R multiplied by delta PE. So, we see that a lender gets compensated for first, rental of purchasing power من خلال ال R, anticipated loss of purchasing power on the principal من خلال delta PE, anticipated loss of purchasing power on the interest من خلال ال R multiplied by delta PE. So, let's take an example. So, 1 year loan, $1,000. There is a 1 year loan, $1,000. Parties agree on 3% rental rate for money, and there is 5% expected rate of inflation. So, to calculate the total amount that will be paid to the lender and the total compensation for the lender, we can do as follows. Items to pay, calculation and amount. Of course, the principal ده أصل المبلغ اللي هو $1,000. Rent on money ال 1,000 multiplied by 3 اللي هي rental rate for money. وهنا الرينتال ريت فور ماني اللي هو الريال انترست ريت، اللي هو معدل الفايده الحقيقي. يبقى 3 multiplied by 3% multiplied by 1,000 يدينا $30. بي بي loss on principal. البي بي loss المقصود بيها البورسينج باور loss on principal 1,000 multiplied by 5% delta PE, the expected rate of inflation. PP loss on interest, PP loss on interest, 1,000 multiplied by 3%. يقوم يدينا rent on money اللي هو الانترست. طيب نضربه في expected rate of inflation 5% equal to $1.5. So the total amount will be paid to the lender will be $1,081.5. The total compensation, of course, will equal $81.5. So $81.5 will be paid as compensation from the borrower to the lender. The simplified Fisher equation يبقى the derived equation from the exact Fisher equation. دي derived equation ودي simplified equation. simplified equation بيقول لي ان هو نتيجة ان derived equation is more complicated. وأيضا due to the third term in the Fisher equation is negligible. بيكون طبعا negligible, so it's commonly dropped. So the resulting equation is I equal R plus delta P. So the simplified Fisher equation I equal R plus delta B. Versus experience ex post. Realized rates of return reflect impact of inflation on post investments. So to calculate the realized rate of return R equal I minus delta PA, where the realized rate of return from post transactions R equals the nominal rate minus the actual annual rate of inflation. وهنا تاخد بال حضرتك جدا ان as inflation increases expected inflation premiums PE may lag actual rates of inflation PA yielding low or even negative actual returns. طيب يبقى أنا لما كنا بنحسب ال I النومينال interest rate من simplified Fisher equation كنا بنقول إن ال I النومينال interest rate equal R real rate of interest plus delta PE ال expected rate of inflation. وخد بالك ان احنا قلنا دلتا بي اي expected علشان كده بيقول لي هنا expectations يعني المتوقع اكسانتي اللي هو السابق للحدوث المتوقع الاكسبيرينس او الاكسبوست ده اللاحق للحدوث يعني اللي حدث فعلا اللي هو الاكشوال. علشان كده لما بنيجي نحسب ال realized rate of return R بنقول إن R equal I minus delta PA وقلنا A مش E قلنا A لأن هي actual لأن هي حدثت بالفعل. يبقى إذن realized اللي هو ال R بيساوي النومينال rate معدل الفايدة الاسمي اللي أنت حضرتك get received اللي حصلت عليه بالفعل minus the actual annual rate of inflation معدل الفايدة اللي حصل برضه بالفعل لأن ده حضرتك احنا بنحسب ده ex post بعد ما الحدث حصل. وزي ما قلنا إن احنا as inflation increases expect inflation premiums PE may lag actual rates of inflation PA ده yielding low or even negative actual returns ده ممكن يؤدي إن ال P إن ال R تكون بالنيجاتيف تكون بالماينس. For example, as the exhibit 4.5 realized rate of return during the period from 1970 to 2010. So inflation and interest rates during this period. So this is the percentage change and this is year. The black line is 3 months treasury bills, the return on 3 months treasury bills. And the blue line, the realized rate of return. So you will find that the realized rate of return was negative during this period, during this year as well, during this year 2008, the financial crisis, the realized rate, real rate of return was negative. كان في الفترة دي negative. So لو جينا نشوف تفسير الجزئية دي واخدنا مثال وحطينا لنفسنا 3 positions ان احنا عندنا 3 positions او 3 cases عندنا 3 حالات. For example case A لو حضرتك تكتب معايا كده case A في الكيس A ده بنسميها اكسانتي يعني لسه احنا بنتوقع اكسانتي كيس A ونكتب جنبيها اكسانتي. طيب اكسانتي كانت البي اي كانت 5% تمام. الار وهنا هبقى عارف الار لانها اكسانتي يبقى انا محتاج الاي هنا في الاكسانتي محتاج الاي يبقى البي اي يبقى الدلتا بي اي هتبقى 5% وركز دلتا بي اي. الار اللي هو الريال ريت اوف ريتيرن 5% as well. وبالتالي لو جينا نحسب الاي according الاي هنقول ان اي equal to r plus delta p e يبقى الاي equal to 10% يبقى البي اي 5% r real rate of interest 5% I 10%. So this is the case A ex ante. Case B ونكتب جنبيها ex post اكسبوست يبقى أنا هيكون عندي دلتا بي اي. دلتا بي اي اللي هو الاكسبكتد انفليشن ريت دلتا بي اي. وهنا هنفترض we will suppose that delta PA equal to 10%. اوكي. طالما ان انا بحسب اكس بوست، بحسب هنا اكس بوست يعني حدث بالفعل، وبالتالي هيكون عندي الاي اللي هو النومينال اللي انا get received. الاي هيكون 10% as well، هيبقى 10% زي ما احنا افترضنا هنثبت الاي في 3 cases. يبقى الاي 10% في الكيس بي اللي هي اكس بوست، يبقى الدلتا بي اي 10%. الاي في الاخر خالص on the right هتبقى 10%. طيب يبقى في الوسط محتاج الار اللي هي realized rate. طب لما يكون عندك، لما تيجي تحسب الريلايزد ريت اللي هي الار equal I minus دلتا بي اي، يبقى الاي 10% minus دلتا بي اي اللي هي ايضا افترضنا ان هي we supposed that it's 10% as well، يبقى الار equal to 0. يبقى هنا لما البي اي او الاكشوال انفليشن ريت ارتفع ل 10% اللي هو نفس الريت الخاص بالاي اللي انا جيت ريسيفد، هاجي ابص الاقي ان الريلايزد ريت اللي انا حصلت عليه كان 0. طيب افترض في الكيس سي اللي هي ايضا هتكون اكسبوست ان البي اي موفد تو 11%. الاي افترضنا ان هي ثابته، الاي 10%، وبالتالي لما اجي احسب الار هقول له الار ايكوال اي ماينس دلتا بي اي، الاي 10% ماينس 11%، يبقى الار الريلايزد ريت in this case in the case C اللي هي exposed will equal minus 1%. يبقى هنا as inflation increases، مع زيادة الانفليشن expected inflation premiums PE may lag actual rates of inflation، يعني ال actual rate of inflation ممكن يزيد عن اللي كان expected، وبالتالي ده ممكن يوديني in low or even negative actual returns، واحنا ضربنا examples ب 0 و minus 1%. The impact of inflation under loanable funds theory. هنا loanable funds theory بتفسر لي الجزئية الخاصة بالانفليشن، وازاي ان الانترست ريت بيتحرك او بيزيد نتيجة عملية الانفليشن. يبقى هنا بيقول لي if expected inflation increases prospective lenders should have tendency to increase their current consumption, thus reducing the available funds. The supply schedule shifts upwards، وبالتالي السبلاي schedule shifts upwards هيتحرك للأعلى will move up. In contrast, prospective borrowers should have tendency to increase their future consumption, thus increasing the needed funds. وبالتالي the demand schedule demand function will shift upwards as well. هلاقي ان الديماند فانكشن هيتحرك will move up، وهلاقي ان الاس ال will move up، لان الاس ال بيتوقع ان الانفليشن هيزيد، وبالتالي هيكون محتاج اموال اكتر علشان الانفاق على الانفستمنتس. البورورز لما يشعر ان الانفليشن ريت will increase هيميل to increase their future consumption، هيزود استهلاكه في المستقبل، لانه هيحتاج اموال اكتر علشان ينفق على نفس الكميه اللي كان بيشتريها قبل كده بسبب ان الانفليشن زاد. وبالتالي هلاقي إن السبلاي of money will move up والdemand of money will move up. علشان كده الانترست rate will move from RO to I1. The nominal interest rate will move up. يبقى will move from RO to I1. The movements of interest rates and inflation. Historically, the interest rates tend to change with changes in the rate of inflation. Substantiating the Fisher equation. يبقى ال interest rates tend to change with changes in the rate of inflation, substantiating the Fisher equation. B. تثبت صحة الفيشر equation. وهنا short term rates are more responsive to changes in inflation than long term rates. يبقى لما نيجي نشوف هنا الموفمنتس الإكزيبت 4-6 movements of interest rates and inflation خلال برضه نفس الفترة اللي هي 1970 to 2010. وهنا البرستيج تشينج والير هلاقي ان هنا شوف حضرتك هنا الريت اوف انفليشن. الريت اوف انفليشن هنا measured by CPI. CPI اللي هو the consumer price index. consumer price index. long term rates طبعا measured by the 10-year treasury notes معدل عائد على السندات الخزانة اللي هي لمدة 10 سنوات. هلاقي ان الشورت تيرم rates measured by 3-month treasury bills. So the interest rates change in response to inflation as predicted by the Fisher equation. The rate of inflation is calculated based on the consumer price index. وهنا هلاقي الملحوظة الثانية المهمة إن الشورت تيرم rates are more responsive. هنا طبعا بتكون الشورت تيرم more responsive than long term rates. لما تيجي تشوف حضرتك هنا التغير التشينجز اللي بيحصل في rate of inflation CPI هتلاقي إن هو followed by الإيه 3-month treasury bill more than 10-year treasury notes. هتلاقي إن نفس الموفمنتس الحركات اللي بيتحركها الموفمنتس اللي بتحركها السي بي اي هتلاقي القريب منها قوي في التحرك هو ال 3-month treasury bills not 10-year treasury notes. So I hope all is going well with you, and now we will finish this lecture, and inshallah we'll see you soon in the coming lecture the next week inshallah. Thanks so much.